review my thoughts on tonight's episode of Arrow titled A.W.O.L. And starting out, for anyone who watched my review of last week's episode and saw my anti-Oracle Felicity rant, I was proven wrong in this episode. Going into last week's episode and the problems I had with it and the whole Oracle thing, I kind of did go off a little more than I probably should have. I got some messages from people saying how wrong I was and blah, blah, blah. And I was just expressing my concern over the show because in the past, it's taken a little, far too many cues from Batman overall. And I didn't like how it seemed like they're going in the Oracle direction of things. But I have to say, this was honestly one of the better episodes of the season as far as character development goes. And one of the things I actually enjoyed about this episode, and it's something that I didn't really expect, and it's something that, especially going into this season, I wouldn't expect. This was the most character growth I've seen in Felicity in a really long time. As I watched this episode, the whole Felicity hallucination thing aside, that I could have gone without, but I really enjoyed Felicity's character in this episode, and because she's very clearly doesn't feel like she's ready to go out in the field, and it's completely understandable, and I don't blame her for not wanting to. I didn't necessarily like how it's only been a week and a half, and Theo's like, oh, we can just call Felicity. It's Oliver probably should have said hey, she's not really up for it. He did, but Thea should have known that. But seeing the struggle of Felicity and thinking that she's not really because of what happened and everything, she's feeling very doubtful of herself and her abilities to help the team. And then halfway through the episode, she thinks she's struggling, and because she's her hallucination and her really she's in her own way. And that was an aspect of the episode that I actually really enjoyed. I really, really did. And honestly, this, again, I've already gone a couple minutes talking about this, but this was a step in the right direction for Felicity as a character. And I've been ragging on Felicity as a character for the last, year almost. I didn't start really ragging on her until towards the end of last season, but even then, I've been ragging on her for a long time now. I still don't like how they handled her in third season. I still don't like how they've handled her for most of this season. But this episode, as a singular episode, I loved Felicity's character development in it. And it was definitely a step in the right direction for me. For someone who hasn't been a fan of hers since season 3, this was a step in the right direction. And of course, like I said in the beginning in my video, I was wrong. And Felicity finally got her code name. A really lame code name, but hey, it's not Oracle. And they even kind of made a fun job saying Oracle's already taken or something along the lines of that. It's funny because as they said that, I wasn't really paying attention to the scene. And I was like, oh, I missed it because I already people were already talking about it. They make a jab about the whole Oracle thing. And of course, being my problems with last week's episode, the fact that they made a jab about the whole Oracle thing, it's already taken. I did like that. And of course, the Overwatch name, it's weird. It feels like a weird mix of Watchtower and Oracle, Watchtower being Chloe Sullivan's code name from Smallville, which is a very similar character by a lot of means to Felicity in this show. But yeah, so to get into the more specifics of the episode, again, I'm already 4 minutes into my video, and all I've done is talk about Felicity, which is weird for me. Another aspect of the episode that I really enjoyed was the further development of the Diggle brothers, seeing a more human side of Andy that even Diggle says he hasn't seen in 8 years. And even though Andy's still it's hard to know whether or not we can trust him as an audience, I want to believe that he's honestly changing himself. It would be an awesome twist if he ends up still working for Damien Dark, and all this was just a ruse, and maybe it's possibly Andy who possibly kills whoever's in the grave. Maybe it's Diggle, because we know it's not Felicity at this point. But even then, I love seeing their character dynamic throughout the episode, and Amy showing their flashbacks to their wartime in Afghanistan. And it's weird, because I'm watching the flashbacks, it's the exact same set that they used for, I think it was like 2 years ago when they did the flashback for Diggle and his time where he met Lila in the army. It doesn't even look like Afghanistan. It looks like some like dirty forest in Canada. Of course, like, it's being a show that's produced in Canada and they only have limited sets, so they can't like fly off to Afghanistan. But I just me being the nitpicky person that I am, like, I noticed that sort of thing. And another thing I noticed about the episode that I haven't really noticed before was, Diggle officially going by the code name of Spartan, and that's the first time that they've really used that in the show, like, officially. I mean, they mentioned it like here and there in brief glimpses, but I think it's a pretty cool code name. I mean, like, at the beginning of the season, we're all expecting him to go by the name Guardian because his helmet, despite looking like a black and gray version of Magneto's helmet, is kind of very Guardian-esque from the comics. But giving him his own code name, considering he's a character that they created for the show, I liked the fact that they're using it. What else did I enjoy about the episode? I liked the brief conversation that Laurel and Oliver had, because I feel like it's the first time in a long time that Laurel and Oliver have actually had a real conversation without Oliver being super condescending. And Laurel saying, like, hey, it comes from someone who's dated you, blah, 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 like, all that sort of stuff. I like the interaction between them, because Oliver has not treated Laurel with enough respect throughout the show. And that's always been a big problem of mine. Ever since, I started becoming a fan of Laurel, I started noticing the way that Oliver treats her. I mean, yes, there was a time where it's like they're almost on equal footing, but at the same time, like, Oliver, and the way, I just didn't like the way he's, like now that I've become more aware of these things, I didn't like how he talked to her, for the most part. But in this particular episode, I like the interaction between them, and I want to see more of that. And unfortunately, I feel like it's because Felicity wasn't there that conversation even happened. So now that Felicity's back, I feel like those conversations aren't going to continue. And I wanted to see more of like little things like that throughout the show, showing like a mutual respect between Oliver and Laurel. And you could argue like, oh, ever since she became Black Canary, like Oliver's tried to respect her, whatever, like about that. But I just think subtle things like that, showing the progression in their relationship, considering how sour it got by the end of like season 2, beginning of midway through season 3. The subtle progression of their relationship is something I want to see a little more of. And the interaction that they had in this episode was something I really enjoyed. Again, seeing the growth in Felicity's character, the Oracle reference. Sorry, I'm just going off my notes here. I've already talked about some of this stuff. But anyways, and by the end of the episode, showing Andy moving in with John and Lila, and showing their baby Sarah, who we haven't actually seen in like almost a year. And showing that they're more than likely going to introduce Andy back to his wife and child, which is kind of awkward because, like, Diggle kind of, like, dated her in the first season, which is a little weird. But, I mean, it's funny because she's, like, the character's been, like, MIA since first season, and because they brought back in Lila as a character and showed the progression of their relationship, which ended up them showing them getting remarried, clearly. Be a little awkward, but, of course, I liked seeing... This episode was marketed almost being to, like, like, all Felicity's gonna do was be, like, all worried, like, oh, I can't go out in the field, we're, like, all worried about her in a wheelchair. And the previews for that almost, like, made me, like, turn off from the episode. I was like, come on, like, I really don't want another Felicity-centric episode. And while the Felicity's character was developed in this episode, it wasn't, like, her episode. If anything, it was more of John and Andy's episode, which was surprising, and something I really enjoyed watching. I feel like I've said it, like, a bunch of times already this episode, because I feel like this episode, like, despite my problems with the season, this was a really solid episode, and like pretty much every character had some sort of character growth, like, except for like Thea. Like, she was the only character because she only had like a couple scenes here and there, just action scenes. And that was another thing, like the action scene and Argus towards the end of the episode. Actually, I like that as well. I mean, the Arrow has always had like pretty good like action choreography, and their stunt coordinator, he's awesome. I mean, I've never met him in person or anything, but like seeing what he is able to do with these actors on a show like this, like, I've always been impressed. And, to get into some of the things that I didn't necessarily care for, I already mentioned the whole Felicity hallucination thing, bring back Goth Felicity. I could have gone without that. I feel like I've seen it too many times in shows in general, so I didn't really need that. Kind of took me out of the episode a little bit. I mean, while I still enjoyed Felicity's growth as a character in this episode, I could have gone without the hallucination. You could have developed that character without having the hallucination aspect of it. So give that. And then the bad guys, the Shadow Spire guy, when he gets an Argus, is like, oh, I'm going to give you 20 minutes. why not do it now or within like 5 minutes? Why give her such a long period of time? Like, that was just weird to me. And the unclimactic death of Amanda Waller in this show, supported more my theory that the fact that every chance they get, this show, because the fact that they're making a Suicide Squad movie, they're slowly having to kill off the characters that are tied to the Suicide Squad. I mean, we saw Deadshot killed last year, and Amanda Waller killed this episode. Bronze Tiger was killed in a comic book, like the season 2.5 last year. So it's like all these members of the Suicide Squad and Argus is like falling apart. So it's like they're really trying to get the show to kill off the characters so that way they won't have access to them, so that way the movies can have access to those characters without audiences confusing them. It sucks, because actually I enjoy the Amanda Waller character in the show for the most part. She hasn't really been utilized in this season, like, really at all. She was used more of, like, beginning of last season with the whole flashbacks in China and all that. But I know it sucks seeing characters being killed off like that, just so the movies can have access to them. But I just didn't like the way how her death was so quickly handled. I mean, I understand, like, there wasn't some like, weird exchange of dialogue. The villain's like, I'm gonna kill you, but first let me give you a villain speech. Like, I'm glad it wasn't like one of those kind of situations. I'm glad I was like, oh, well, whatever, I'm just gonna kill you. But at the same time, I just felt like very, like, anticlimactic, you know? And I've already talked about Felicity's codename, me having issues with that. But other than that, like I've said several times, this was a really great episode. And again, it proved me wrong. I want to see more growth in these characters moving forward. And I want this season to start picking up more, because the season as a whole I haven't been that impressed yet. But it's starting to pick up little by little, and I want this season hopefully to end a better place than third season ended. So with that being said, I think that's going to be it for me, guys. So if you guys like what you see here, go ahead and hit subscribe below. I do review these DC shows every week. I review Supergirl on Mondays, Flash on Tuesdays, Arrow obviously on Wednesdays, and the new DC show Legends of Tomorrow on Thursdays, and I have a lot of like trailer reviews and movie reviews and stuff in between that. So if you guys want to check out my channel, go ahead and do so. So yeah, that'll be it for me, guys. So until next time, have a good one.